It really feels like the seasons have changed, doesn't it? Up on Dartmoor there's a bite in the air, the leaves are on fire, and then there's that low blazing light, the final flame of a dying year. But that's the obvious stuff that everyone's noticed, and us nature geeks will have spotted a whole host of other little clues that the wheel of the world has turned. For example, our summer birds are long gone. No more flycatchers in the woods, willow warblers on the heath, or wheatears on the open moor. They've sensibly flown all the way back to the warmer climate of Africa for the winter. But the loss of our summer migrants doesn't mean that the moor is empty now, because for some birds we are the south. Winter thrushes like redwings and fieldfares, looking to flee the bitter winters of Siberia and Scandinavia, are pouring onto our island, much to the rage of Remain MPs. Only joking. I'm sure they'd be fine with the Russian ones. A really special moment of the year for me is when I hear my first redwing fly overhead. They migrate at night, usually in big flocks, and they stay in contact with each other by making a thin little seep sound. If you stand outside on a clear evening at this time of year and listen quietly, it won't be long before you hear them passing by overhead, invisible in the darkness. Give it a try. All of our migratory thrushes really like to feed on berries, so today, on a November morning, I've come out to the area around Meldon Reservoir on Dartmoor, which I know has an abundance of hollies, rowans and hawthorns in its sheltered valleys, to give me the best chance to find some of these winter migrants. In the past, I have stumbled across absolutely huge flocks of these birds, all chattering and squabbling with each other, literally bending the branches of the trees with the sheer weight of their numbers. And if I was going to be very, very lucky, then among the redwings, fieldfares, blackbirds and assorted thrushes, I might find a real Dartmoor speciality, a ring ouzel. Welcome back to the Dartmoor podcast. Now, if you were to look it up in your bird book, a ring ouzel might just look a bit like a blackbird with a little white bib on. But that doesn't prepare you for meeting one. They have a completely different aura to your common garden blackbird. There's something very wild about them. For starters, they're incredibly shy and wary, so you have to sneak up on them, even to watch them from a distance. And if you're lucky enough to catch one in your binoculars, you'll see that as well as that distinctive white bib, they also have a beautiful fine filigree of silver on the edge of every feather, like they've been gilded in some precious metal or decorated with dewy spiders' webs. And best of all is their call. The name Ouzel comes from an Old English name for a blackbird, which itself comes from the German name Ouzel. But I think there's something onomatopoeic about Ouzel too. It captures the rich flutiness and the wild, scratchy buzzing of their cry, the spirit of the wilderness distilled into a sound. But I really wasn't expecting to see any today. As I said, they're very flighty, so hard enough to see, let alone film. There's very little of anything about the moment, I think because of the wind. I'm hoping when I get round the corner it'll be sheltered, and that's where all the ouzels will be, trapped in the valley with me and my camera. Something blackbird-like. That's a very goose right next to me.
Apologies for my language there. It surprised me a little bit. Oh, amazing. A whole load of them just went over the hill there. Didn't manage to get them with the zoom lens, but that one was so close. I think he's even on the GoPro. And he did a little squeak for us as well. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. That'll probably be it now. Won't see another one for the rest of the trip.
And indeed, that's what happened. That was the last glimpse of Ouzel I was to have on this trip. Ringos are unique among our thrushes in that they aren't arriving in Britain for the winter, but leaving. They actually breed very secretively and with diminishing success in Britain and on Dartmoor. So as the redwings and fieldfares flock in from the north, the ouzels are just fattening up to leave for their winter flight to the Atlas Mountains of Morocco. The Atlas Mountains of Morocco. Just the sound of the words there, it sounds so exotic, doesn't it? I'm not going to look up an image in case it isn't the fantastical Xanadu paradise I'm imagining. The Atlas Mountains of Morocco. Anyway, I expect that's where my surprising Ouzel is now. The Atlas Mountains of Morocco. Right, I'll stop mooning about the Atlas Mountains of Morocco and my lost Ouzel. There are still plenty of other good birds to see. Like these goosanders. Perhaps the easiest way to think about a goosander is as a badass duck. They wear a similar colour scheme to more run-of-the-mill wildfowl, but wear it with attitude, a sleek, predatory profile, punky hairdos and sore bills. Their beaks are actually jagged to help them grip the fish they dive to catch. They're the closest thing you'll get to a bird with teeth. The rest of the day was a battle with the changeable weather and trying to keep my camera dry. And annoyingly, despite an abundance of berries, there didn't seem to be a lot of interest from the birds. I contented myself with watching a beautiful heron, an a kestrel, and some ravens playing overhead. Blackator Beer had a nice sign taunting me with an Ouzel, and a confusingly inaccurate photo of a marsh tit labelled as a stone chat corrected to a willow tit. I won't bore you with a dissection.
It's a marsh tit, we wouldn't have a willow tit here.
Just let it go, Bass
wrong,
George. The day got weary, and it wouldn't be long before it drew a long shadow over my valley hideout. Despite the lack of birds, there's something deeply satisfying about committing to a day out birding like this. Not just because Dartmoor's flipping beautiful, but because in the best moments you're getting into that flow state that I imagine long-distance runners and artists and fishermen feel. Concentrating, but not concentrating too much, letting the focus spread thin and float over your surroundings, like casting a fine net with your senses, and just waiting. Not hoping, that would be incredibly bad luck. Just waiting on the whim of the birds. I pitched up for the evening by this little Dartmoor curiosity, a near perfectly rectangular enclosure around the river just a few hundred metres downstream from Blackator Beer. It's only about the size of half a football pitch. But look at it, what a dense and wild jungle has sprung up in there. Not even enough room between the saplings for a weasel to wriggle. Real rainforest stuff. And how was this explosion of flora allowed to flourish upwards in this landscape of horizontals? Well, it's just that there's a wall. Turns out that if you keep enough sheep and deer out, these Dartmoor river valleys would quite quickly become wet woodlands, practically lifeless boggy valleys transformed into lush cleaves and beers abound with bugs and beasts and birds. It's not even a deliberate attempt to illustrate this, it's just something to do with the water company. A bit of accidental rewilding, if you like. And there was time for one more nature encounter before bed. A flock of fieldfares shot overhead, too fast for me to film unfortunately, and shortly after, the shadow of death, a peregrine, winged its way after them. A purposeful peregrine is quite a thing to see. Hooded and cowled, its heavy body sleek and slaty dark as a nuclear sub. I wouldn't want to be a winter thrush on the moor tonight.
There's someone flying a drone around. Seriously. Camped out here to be, you know, the first up and out, best chance of catching the birds without them being disturbed. Flipping drone zipping about.
Beautiful as the next morning was, the bird life was to be quantity over quality, with some big flocks of starlings and wood pigeons zipping about in the first rays of the sun. Wood pigeon migration is a bit of a mystery. I don't remember it ever being a thing years ago, and I'm pretty certain that resident British wood pigs don't migrate, so these were either continental birds passing through or it's some sort of dispersal migration. This is where the population of pigeons has become too dense and they just kind of flap about in a big mad bunch, reluctant to cross any water, racing round and round the southwest coast path until the flock slowly disintegrates as they drop off into new territories, or something like that anyway. Well, I wish I'd got more video of the ouzels for you, but that crazy close encounter was pretty special, and now I can see the funny side. I don't know if I'd swap it for a lake full of ouzel footage. Maybe the best birds are those that bless you with a fleeting moment and leave you dreaming of the Atlas Mountains of Morocco. The joy is in the brevity, I suppose. See you next time.